digitally right now to support a retailer who is building out to go up against much larger companies from other markets. So we have to grow elsewhere. And so as a result, we built for international from the start. We have delivered books into 200 countries, and while the top countries probably aren't surprising, I know they are exactly the kinds of countries that you expect to see in a top 10 list of ebook consumers, it's the long tail that's kind of interesting in this. What we have found is that reading, and especially digital reading, happens absolutely everywhere. And not just everywhere in terms of the scenarios in which it can take place. And there are certainly lots of those, but how they are happening around the world. Part of that is because we were built to love territorial rights. You can't grow up as a bookseller in Canada without loving territorial rights, so it was kind of ingrained into us from the beginning. But it has then meant that we've been able to sell the right book in the right territory in those 200 countries. And so back in the spring, we actually took a snapshot, and we took a look at where were books being delivered. And so May 21st, 2010 was sort of a day in the international life of Kobo, not an especially remarkable day. And so we sold books in the US and in Korea and France and New Zealand and Venezuela and Lithuania and Honduras and Bosnia, Fiji, St. Lucia, Yemen, Gabon, and Vanuatu. 174 countries in one day. 5% of our overall sales are into non-English markets. And we have these pockets of passionate users in all of these different countries around the world. We have 92 committed Kobo customers in Malta and 20 in Mongolia. We have 9 in Andorra, which may be like every digital reader in Andorra, for all I can tell. We have 7 in Burkina Faso, which may include like children as well as adults. And we have 2 in Bhutan. Until now, these have been primarily English language sales, but there are absolutely additional languages coming, although I don't hold out a lot of hope for Bhutan, but there are other new languages coming. The other challenge that we see rolled up inside this is while there is an increasing momentum towards ebook retailers becoming international, it then begs the question, what does local bookselling look like? So if there's a necessity to be international, or at least an inclination to be international, how do you maintain that connection with the needs of individual markets? And for us, that happens in a couple of different ways. A lot of the work that we do is with partner retailers. So we are working with retailers who know a market, understand a market, have intimate exposure to a market, and are doing and striking more of these kinds of relationships all the time. And that's a model that we hope to continue to extend around the world. We feel that there is no question that Kobo will continue to grow internationally, both because we love being active in other markets. We love the cross-pollination that being active in multiple markets can bring. Also because our device partners like Samsung and RIM want us to be there, want us to be delivering reading experiences in those markets. And as you can see, because we have to, because that is the way that we can continue to achieve the scale that we need to compete in this space. Now the next one, the next quality that a retailer is going to need to have is a bit of an odd one, but bear with me. What we have seen, or at least what we believe, is that there is a different kind of relationship that's created between an ebook store and its customers as opposed to a regular bookstore and its customers. They aren't just buying books from you. They are creating a library with you. You are, in a way, not just a retailer, you are in a lot of ways a custodian of their library. You are their bookshelves. You are taking care of their reading lives. And if there's one thing that we know about readers, it's that we like to keep books around us. We go back to them. We don't go back to all of them. We don't always do it often, but we want them in our lives and we want to keep them over time. And so each ebook retailer who's engaging in this space really has to decide what kind of custodian of that reading life do they want to be. This is something that we thought about a lot. enough that we actually put down some thoughts, we posted it publicly, we collected some feedback from it, and we called it the e-reader Bill of Rights. And they go something like this, that you as an ebook consumer should always have the ability to get your books out. And that you should be able to have your books sort of maintained separately from the retailer who's sold them to you. And there's an interesting kind of litmus test that you can ask about this. You can ask yourself the question, if the company that you're buying ebooks from got hit by a meteorite tomorrow, so this kind of turned into this, what would happen to your library? Can you keep local copies of your books? Can you back them up? Can you keep reading them if the company that you're buying from changes direction or formats or devices? Can you throw them in Dropbox or a backup drive or a secure undisclosed location? That's something that we feel is quite important. We use Adobe Content Server to make that happen. There is an element of proprietary DRM to that, which is absolutely true. In the perfect world, the only foolproof means of having truly portable books is to have no DRM at all. But publishers tend not to give us books unless we put DRM on them. So we use ACS as the means of keeping things somewhat open or at least portable across devices. So at the very least, you can choose to maintain your entire reading life outside Kobo if you so choose. At the same time, you should have the right to get your books in. You should be able to add your own documents and EPUBs and PDFs and other bits and pieces that were not purchased through that retailer. Your library shouldn't be limited to the things that you buy from a particular store any more than you should have one room in your house where you only read the books you bought at airport bookstores and another room in your house where you only read books that you bought at independent bookstores. It makes no sense. It's a definite decorating challenge. You should be able to add unencrypted, un-DRM'd stuff in and keep it around. It would be even better if you could get DRM books from other vendors in. These are the kinds of things that we're working on. You can already today load un-DRM'd EPUB files into our iPhone and iPad apps, add both un-DRM'd and ACS EPUBs into the e-reader, and this is a place where we will keep pushing. The ideal is that you should be able to buy books where you want. You should be able to bring them to the reading experience that's right for you. And then when you have them there, you should be able to preserve your library. If the device that you read on gets eaten or burned or broken, can you get your purchased books back, or do you have to buy them again? Do you have to explicitly sync or back them up? We believe that your library should always be readily available no matter what. And with Kobo, this isn't a problem. Books and devices have been dropped into lakes, left on subways, eaten by bears, and new devices acquired, and then the books restored as if by magic. We also believe in the right to freedom of movement. If a newer, better, lighter, more colorful, trans fat-free reading device comes along, can you get your library onto it? Or if you got a device from work and you have to give it back, can you move your books to something new? The only thing worse than feeling trapped is having to leave books on a device that you can't or don't want to use anymore. Our motto is absolutely no book gets left behind. You should be able to hop from an iPhone to a BlackBerry to a Sony reader to a Nook to a Kobo e-reader to an Android tablet to an iPad to a garage sale netbook and have your library follow you around. And then the last for us is DRM if necessary, but not necessarily DRM. When DRM is mandated, we do it. But if it isn't required, we don't feel that we should be applying it anyway just because we can't help ourselves. Publishers usually ask us to put DRM on our books, and we do. But on some occasional happy days, someone says, keep my books open, no DRM, let her rip. And that's the kind of thing that we are starting to do more and more of and are very happy about that. And so that's what being a custodian means to us. It means the preservation of a library for as long as you want it. It means using us as a library or not, reading books on our apps or don't. We'll be here for you when your device gets trampled by wild zebras, but otherwise, we can stay out of the way as much as you choose. We talked earlier about selection being kind of a basic function for an ebook store, but one of the functions that's becoming critical is finding new and unique voices, authors who have emerged in a way that we never would have seen in print and with printing presses. Retailers